it's not bad enough that Langford, yesterday with Jake Tapper is saying, I've got to do my job and this is what it's going to take. And he wants this win because, of course, it is a huge win for people who don't like immigrants. Then turns around because Donald Trump has told him, he's a bad person. But we also have one of the biggest idiots in the world in control of one of the biggest social media platforms. Here's Langford in that same interview with Jake Tapper, having to respond to Elon Musk's, listen, some of my best friends take a lot of drugs. But when they do, they don't sit down and listen to a Dan Bongino interview or Dana Loesch on immigration or whatever it is.
Hey, you are jumping to conclusions because there's a New York Times piece from December 2022 entitled "Critics Say Musk Has Revealed Himself as a Conservative." It's not so simple. It's not so simple.
That's right. He may be, or maybe it's just Joe Rogan he's listening to. But the conspiracy theories that Elon Musk believes about immigration are stunning.
Far right.
For an immigrant.
Here's a claim being circulated on Twitter or X by Elon Musk, who posted, quote, "The long-term goal of the so-called border security bill is enabling illegals to vote. It will do the total opposite of securing the border," unquote. Now, I know that Elon Musk is
Pause
not
it
an
for
expert.
1 second. Just go back a little bit because I want you to see who he is referencing. No, go to the tweet. He is quote tweeting David Sachs, a friend of a lot of libertarian shows and right-wing shows. Yeah. The Inflation Reduction Act was actually $1 trillion spending bill. Not quite $1 trillion, but it was definitely a big spending bill. The border security bill is actually a mass amnesty. Just assume the bills do the opposite of what they say. This is what a moron writes on Twitter.
That's his.
Oh, I like that logic, though. We should say it's a closed. Wait. Never mind.
But that's his old PayPal.
But here's the point. Let's just break this down. The long-term goal of so-called border security bill is enabling illegals to vote. Now, again, this immigration bill, all it does essentially is narrow the opportunity for people to come here as asylum seekers. It narrows it in a bunch of different ways. It has automatic triggers. It provides the president more authority to narrow but not expand. It limits, it expedites the deportation of people. It narrows the claims that are available to people for here of asylum. It does none of that. But even I'm trying to think of an immigration proposal that would even enable illegals to vote. The long-term goal of so-called border security, even in his tiny pea brain that is addled with God knows what. The idea that you would allow a path to citizenship and it would then provide you new votes for the Democrats. First of all, it takes years and years and years. Joe Biden, this bill could say everybody who crosses the border in 2024 is on a path to citizenship, the normal path to citizenship. And by the time they get in, they're eligible to vote. Joe Biden is going to be a distant memory on this planet. It takes that long. And the data suggests that immigrants don't necessarily vote for one party or another party. And on top of that, the Republican Party already has its power based upon a minority of the voters.
Wow.
So this is in all of these aspects.
But it's that existential dread about this country eventually being a minority country. Also, this is just exactly what Elon Musk endorsed in the anti-Semitic post in November that forced the ADL to have to respond to him essentially, and then he walked it back and did a trip to Israel. It's just great replacement theory stuff.
Exactly.
He just left out the Jews are the ones that are orchestrating.
Totally. All right, continue on.
But what are his politics? I can't tell.
the total opposite of securing the border, unquote. Now, I know that Elon Musk is not an expert on illegal immigration or the border, but he has a huge megaphone.
He does.
Explain what he's talking about here. Is he wrong?
Well, I think he needs to go back to doing the 2 million Teslas that are currently being recalled right now to be able to focus in on that. No, it's not focused on trying to be able to get more illegals to vote. That's absurd in the process on it. It is against the law for anyone that is not a citizen of the United States to be able to vote in the United States in any federal election. That remains so. Obviously, we're not dealing with that. I've heard some people say, hey, you're not taking on illegal voting, and so I'm going to oppose this bill. By the way, neither did H.R. 2 that came out of the House that so many people have said was the perfect border security bill. It also did not deal with any issues of voting because that bill was seen as a border security bill, not a voting issue bill.
Also, there's almost no examples in the history of the country of undocumented immigrants attempting to vote, because it would be the dumbest thing in the world for someone to do. I desperately am invested in who's the comptroller in Putnam County, so I'm going to go and risk deportation to vote. It's just absurd.
Yeah, this is just like Joe Rogan when he had Stavros Halkias on, and Stav's dad is a Greek immigrant. He's like, my dad can't vote, and he's been here like this entire time. And it's election denial. It's the same thing that they do with Taylor Swift. Is they are, like you say, a minority of the country and even electorate, and they need excuses, and that's what these are.
And also, just to be clear, I mean, do we have that other Elon Musk tweet? Yeah, let's put that up. This guy's just so dumb and buys into the most base. Here he goes. Here he's calling. Biden's strategy is very simple. Get as many illegals in the country as possible, legalize them to create a permanent majority, a one-party state. This is just the dumbest, dumb thing possible.
Or is it like Nazi paranoia?
First of all, he doesn't understand the difference between a legal status and citizenry that allows you to vote. He doesn't understand that. Like, we have many people here in this country who are under the temporary protected status because their country is incredibly inhospitable for them to go back. They cannot vote. When you're here on a visa, your status is legal. You cannot vote. In fact, when you're here on an asylum claim and you step into this country, one step under both U.S. statute and international statute, and you file for asylum, you are here legally and you cannot vote. If you're on a path to citizenship, you are here legally, and it could take you anywhere from depending on the person, depending on the situation, it could take you like a decade, more in some instances, before you can vote. It's just absurd.
It's absurd. But, it really is much more in keeping with his ideology when you realize that this is a person who grew up in apartheid South Africa, who romanticizes those systems. That is part of why he was so eager to go to Israel's apartheid state, and felt such fealty to it, even though he's a virulent anti-Semite. And also, this is the union buster that we know is somebody who has a deep aversion to worker solidarity that might cut into his bottom line. And at the base of all of this right-wing xenophobia, maybe not from the voter base, they just don't like Latinos and people like that, or black people coming from Haiti. But for rich guys that are pushing this kind of stuff, what they really, really like about border militancy is creating a system in which the workforce is going to be in a very precarious situation, and that they can exploit them as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, the answer is, instead of criminalizing these people like we have started to do with Title 42, started by Miller after he tried for a while and then COVID gave him the final push, say, okay, we'll do it, and Biden keeping it on. We should be processing people. We should be getting them to work. And the thing is, like, when Elon Musk poses as if he's setting up for labor, that's really you should should be able to sniff that out. The capitalists like the current
He's
system.
suing to get the National Labor Relations Board to be found to be unconstitutional right now. The Trader Joe's, incidentally, has joined him on that.
And the right wing and capitalists like the current system of extremely ruthless borders enforcement, because that allows like the people who are using, undocumented labor to say, hey, if you do not say clean that machine out at 3 a.m. or have your kid do it, we're going to get ICE in here and send you out of there. They like this system. It is not because they are looking out for workers' wages.
Exactly. And so that is another thing that underscores the deep failure of the Biden administration here to provide a counter narrative when you can put it within those contexts and you can make it clear that this is a very dangerous situation for migrants, both in like crossing, and then also it enables the cartels, by the way, to exploit them and get. There are reports of people in Gaza trying to cross into Rafah, and they're paying like $10,000, or all the money that they have to get through and to get to safety. That is like on steroids when it comes to the southern border with these cartels. They already do it, and this is just going to increase their like marketability of this kind of very exploitative service. So that makes it much more dangerous. But like these kinds of issues could be articulated by Democrats.
I want to get to that now.
But like just the modernize the processing process. That's what the Democrats should be focusing on, and putting people in a system where they can apply. That's all that they need to provide as a counter narrative.
Wonderful says, Sam, my family emigrated from Colombia. My dad was sponsored by his company, and it took us 14 years to receive citizenship.